Hello everybody! So I finally fixed the whole process of migrating to .NET 10 with .NET Test based on the Microsoft.Testing.Platform with code coverage and TRX files. This is Stef from Samayas and welcome to my channel. Well, I already did a couple of previous videos detailing the painful process of migrating to .NET 10 and using the Microsoft.Testing.Platform, both locally and on Azure DevOps. And so I finally took the time to look into detail for each of those options which I now should be using on my Azure DevOps pipeline, and so I fixed it so that now everything is working again. So let's dig in. So let's first have a little recap. I have my test project, and here I chose to explicitly use MS-Test SDK 4.0.2. I converted it to an output type of executable. I've included testing platform support, and on the packages now, I'm not using the coverlet MS-build anymore, but I'm using a coverlet collector. And since I'm using MS-Test already here, in my packages, I don't have any test included whatsoever. And when I run .NET Test locally, you can clearly see that's a new style of .NET using MPT. As you can see, the green, the red, and the orange. So, locally, everything is ready to use MPT. Now, if I look at my previous .NET Test, which was running before .NET 10, we have .NET Test and the project and a number of parameters. Quite simple. And if I copy paste that in a simple notepad, first of all, the -- project is missing, configuration is still working, but then collect code coverage is something that's obsolete, logger TRX is obsolete, our settings isn't working as it did before, and the -p's are specifically to VSTest. And if I run this locally, of course it fails. But even simply adding -- project doesn't fix it. I get further, but again, it fails on collection, logger, etc. So now we have a nice little comparison between the old and the new. And for each of the old parameters, there's a new parameter next to it, or sometimes an old parameter isn't there anymore and a new parameter is there. First, in the old syntax, we just have one project or a wildcard project. For the new parameters, we need to specify -- project and the project name. Both for the old and the new, we can still specify configuration, debug, release, and that hasn't changed. For -- no build, same thing, no changes. And then -v normal, again, no changes. If we look at the old syntax, we had /p collect coverage equal true and -- collect code coverage. And those two are now replaced by -- coverage. Next, in the old syntax, we had /p coverlet output format equals cobertura, and in the new format, it's coverage output format space cobertura. In the old syntax, we had -p coverlet output with the directory where we wanted to save, and in the new, it's -- coverage output, again, this time with the file we want to save. The old syntax, we had settings, colon, and then the run settings. In new syntax, we have coverage settings and then the run settings, and no colon anymore. In the old syntax, we had -- result directory with result directory, and that as well stays the same in the new directory. In the old syntax, to have transaction logs of your unit tests, we had -- logger TRX, and now in the new syntax, we have -- report TRX. And we need a second property, -- report TRX file name and the name of your TRX file. So all in all, these are minor changes that are manageable. And so in my previous video about this subject, in order to tweak things, what I did, I disabled my test, I disabled the publish of a TRX, I disabled my report generator, and I disabled the publishing of a report generator in order to have my tests running again. Now, we're going to fix this and make everything work again. And so fixing this is quite simple. I simply need to go to every of the control sections, I re-enable my publish TRX result, I re-enable my report generator, I re-enable my publish code coverage, I get rid of my temporary .NET test, and I re-enable my .NET test as a task. And here, all the new parameters are correctly inserted. And pay attention, before I used to have path to project, which was filled in, and now it has become empty. And now, after having it run, each and every step is working again. If I look at the details of my test, I can clearly see the color-coded MPT testing, my TRX get published, my report is generated, and that generated report is published. And if I now look at the overall view of my build, again, I have my tests, I have the release, I have a code coverage, I have my scans. If I now go to my tests, it shows me all tests again by using TRX file. If I click on my code coverage, again, I have a code coverage for all my classes. Well, now I have again all my features available on my build pipeline, and everything is fully operational. However, compared to before, now I can't specify to use multiple test projects and test those all at once, because that doesn't work anymore. If I still want to have that, I need to create multiple tasks, test project by test project. If you guys enjoy this content, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell sign, or leave a comment down below.